Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. I'm Jeff Toffley with the Health Product Declaration Collaborative. I'll be your host today. Let me set the stage because what we're talking about today is bigger than a single state program. For years, material health transparency has been voluntary, something the most forward-looking manufacturers did to differentiate and something everyone else could put off. Washington State has just changed that equation. With Buy Clean, Buy Fair, the state is using its own purchasing power, the buildings it pays for, to make transparency a condition for doing business. When a government of that size dedicates what it will and won't buy, decides what it will and won't buy, the market reorganizes around it. Other states are watching, and this is how a norm becomes a requirement. So the question for manufacturers is no longer whether to disclose, it's whether their product data is in a form the program can actually use. That's the gap we're here to talk about and how the HPD Pre-Check closes it. Two quick notes before we dive in. We're recording today's session and we'll send it to everyone who's registered. And please put your questions in the Q&A panel as we go. We'll hold time at the end. Now for our speakers. First, Hanna Waterstrat, Director of the State Efficiency and Environmental Performance Office at Washington State Department of Commerce. Hanna is at the center of this policy shift, and she'll explain how Buy Clean, Buy Fair actually works and what it asks of the people who sell to public projects. Then Taylor Linnell, co-founder and CEO of Built Cold, will give us a view from the field, what it looks like for a company navigating it in real time. And finally, Mija Marcano, our technical manager at HPDC, will show you how the HPD Pre-Check takes the product data manufacturers already have and gets it ready for what the program requires. Hanna, over to you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I'm just going to bring up my slides, so bear with me 1 minute. Okay, thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here today. As Jeff mentioned, I'm Hanna Waterstrat, and I'm the director of the SEEP office at the Washington Department of Commerce. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about our Buy Clean and Buy Fair policy and how we're working with HPDs. So I mentioned I work for the Department of Commerce. We do a lot of things. In Washington State, we're the one agency that touches every aspect of community and economic development, including international trade, infrastructure, energy, housing, public safety and crime victims, and broadband. So a lot of stuff in there. We're part of the energy division at the Department of Commerce. So to give you a little bit of background on the Buy Clean and Buy Fair policy. This was House Bill 1282, which passed in 2024, and we're now implementing that in law. Some of the key ingredients in our Buy Clean and Buy Fair law are building awareness and education about embodied carbon and HPDs. So before the bill even passed, we'd worked with the U.S. Climate Alliance and the Carbon Leadership Forum to develop a series of educational videos and model reporting specifications that are posted on our website. We developed these with the state government audience in mind, and they've been very helpful for capital project developers, public works project managers, and project teams. But I also use these videos to onboard new team members, educate state agency leadership, and even elected officials. Embodied carbon is a complex topic that's new to many partners, so having supportive resources to demystify it has been helpful. And I'll also just add that this is an ongoing journey. You know, sometimes we learn that there are parts of this work that folks are struggling with or confused about. And so we're just like very trying to adapt to that ecosystem and provide guidance as needed. Also, data collection and reporting is a big part of this work, as is ongoing collaboration with a broad range of cross-sector partners, including our covered industries, labor unions, environmental groups, architects, engineers, and construction companies, and of course, state agencies. Last year, we issued our first legislative report, which was the Low Carbon Manufacturing Plan. And that had a focus on growing low carbon materials manufacturing, and we have another report due in September 2026. As we get more data in the door and more experience with this work, we'll get the chance to use any lessons learned during the first couple of years to update our reporting standards and adjust the database. So our law covers concrete, wood, and steel. This applies to state agencies and higher education institutions and new building construction over 50,000 square feet. You might be wondering what is not included in our Buy Clean and Buy Fair policy. So this is what we call a reporting only bill. It does not include global warming potential or GWP limits on covered materials. It doesn't cover transportation infrastructure or materials like asphalt, and it doesn't include any design-based strategies like whole building LCA. All right, so what are we asking from each covered project? We're asking for basic information about the project. So where is it? How big is it? What's the purpose that the building serves? We're asking for the product quantity for each covered product purchased and a current EPD. We prefer supply chain specific EPDs, but will allow facility or product specific EPDs if no supply chain specific EPDs are available. And then also information about the manufacturer, so the name and location. Then if these products have them, we will include a health product declaration, a supplier code of conduct, and any Office of Minority and Women-Owned Business Enterprises certification. We're also including some data collection around the manufacturing workforce. So our project teams are required to tell us the names and locations of actual production facilities, which is sort of a term of art in the law, but it basically includes the final manufacturing facility and maybe another node in the supply chain. And the working conditions information that we're asking for from these facilities is the number of full, part-time, and temporary employees. And I think this is really just a nod to supporting the workforce, especially as we're trying to grow the production of low carbon materials in Washington State. So why did we include health product declarations in this law? As Jeff mentioned in his introduction, we're really trying to leverage Washington State's purchasing power to reduce our impacts on human health and the environment. And so that includes understanding data both about greenhouse gas emissions and health impacts and toxics. We're also trying to promote transparency on the building materials we're buying. I was so curious to learn going into this work that we just really weren't able to tell that story at all, to look back over our projects and say, like, what are we buying? How much of it are we buying? Where does it get installed on the project? So this will promote transparency quite a bit. And we're also trying to improve demand for and access to cleaner, lower carbon materials. So since we're still early in implementation for Buy Clean and Buy Fair, we have identified some current challenges, but there's also some opportunities. So we are always supporting project teams, as I mentioned earlier, with guidance and technical assistance. This can be through our website, through direct support, and also the HPDC Pre-Check program. I also want to mention here, that sometimes we'll find out either through surveys or through stakeholder collaboration that some of these requirements are confusing. For example, there is a requirement in this law that our state projects now move to performance-based specifications for concrete. And we knew right off the bat that just writing that in the law probably was not enough to make sure that it happened on every single project. So we're right now leaning into developing some additional guidance on performance-based specifications for concrete. So that's just an example. Also, we have so few new building construction projects in the pipeline over 100,000 square feet that right now we have poor access to data. So there actually weren't any projects identified that had to report during the first year of reporting. And that's kind of a bummer, right? Because right now I wish that I was able to tell everybody, here's what we're seeing. On 9 out of 10 projects, we're getting HPDs for every material, or we're getting HPDs more in one industry over the others. And maybe that would tell us something about how we should update our reporting requirements, or any guidance that was needed out there, or maybe we need to do more outreach to manufacturers. But I really don't have I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what we're going to see when reporting ramps up after that square footage threshold drops. So really looking forward to getting more data in the system so we can see and learn from all of that data collection. Um, also, one of the things that's kind of like hindsight is 2020. We have this, technical work group. We have these 2 legislative reports we've been working on. The statutes that tell us what to put in those legislative reports are, kind of like long, bureaucratic, and detailed. But a lot of the emphasis there is really on greenhouse gas emissions or embodied carbon specifically. And now that we're well underway in writing those reports, I sort of wish we had put some more juice in those statutes about health impacts and HPDs so that we could kind of dig a little bit deeper on that side. But on the flip side, there's opportunities as well. So as me and my team have learned more about HPDs, we thought, oh, actually, this relates to some work we're doing on the other side of the SEEP office, which is my team's work around supporting green procurement initiatives in the state of Washington. So right now, we're working to explore options for HPDs, incorporating HPDs with that process and building out some specifications for the types of goods and services that the state of Washington procures. So really excited to dig deeper on that side too. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the database before I hand things over to Taylor from Built Cold. What the statutory requirements for our database include that we have publicly accessible program information, including dashboards, and specifically calls out that we must publish global warming potential, or GWP, as reported in the product EPDs. I am super excited to have a wonderful project team. I feel lucky every day to work with these folks. So we're working with Built Cold and then also with Building Transparency and HPD Collaborative. Also, at Commerce, we're working with my team on Buy Clean and Buy Fair, but it's also been really important to work with our IT project managers so that we kind of have wraparound services for the project. And I really want to make my IT team happy with this database project that can benefit all of us moving forward. And then, as we build this, we're also actively consulting with state agency teams who will be using the database and other stakeholders. So the database is available for reporting now. If folks need to use that, they can reach out to us. We are in the process of developing a landing page to host access to this database from the Commerce website. And then the statute also gives us some flexibility to make updates in early 2027 or later as needed to accommodate emerging needs. And I really like that because, well, for a couple reasons. Often in government, I think we gravitate towards like permanent fixed solutions. And for things where we don't really know what we're doing yet, that seems a little bit silly. So I love having a little bit of flexibility and adaptability baked in. We're certainly going to learn a lot, and we'll be able to make a few tweaks so that we can keep this work efficient and moving forward. So I will wrap up there, and I will answer questions at the end, I believe. But for now, I'll hand things over to Taylor. And thanks again for having me today.
Thank you, Hannah. Hoping everyone can see my slides. So I get to pick up where the policy recap has been so nicely shared from Hannah. And so I'm Taylor, one of the co-founders of Built Cold, and we're a software platform that specializes exclusively in government enablement of clean construction programs. We were awarded the contract last year and started development in July 2025. And we were really thrilled that our team was able to include Building Transparency and HPDC as our subcontractors, because it really, I think, provided a much more comprehensive solution to Washington's Buy Clean and Buy Fair law and policy. The section that I'll be covering today is the more tactical and implementation aspects of incorporating HPDs into government workflows. I'll touch on kind of how do we bring both of these product artifacts, EPDs and HPDs, together, so it's a simple workflow for our agency partners. And then also the challenges we saw during implementation that generated the impetus to do the Washington Buy Clean and Buy Fair pre-check, and what that is going to mean going forward for the state and possibly for other states across the country that are going to be incorporating HPDs into their policies. But first, a little bit about Built Cold. So as I shared at the top, we are a software platform. We help agencies at every level of government, local, state, and federal, design, develop, and deploy low carbon programs. Historically, we started with the Federal Buy Clean Initiative. The General Service Administration was using our software to help identify compliant EPDs for the Federal Buy Clean Initiative. But since then, we've now expanded to support all levels of government, and we work coast to coast, only in North America to date, but we are excited to kind of see clean construction policies take foot across the globe. Our software is designed to make it as easy as possible for agencies to go from low carbon intent all the way to measuring outcomes and iterating and improving their programs. I love that Hanna said that there is latitude in the policy to keep iterating, because that could be more more products rather, more disclosures. It could be even more ways to report and incentivize low carbon and clean construction in the state of Washington. So we designed our software to make sure that the agencies that are deploying and implementing these programs have all the tools at their fingertips to make sure it has that biggest impact with the least burden on not only the agency teams, but also the project teams that have won contracts with the state. And the 4 steps of our platform kind of go from policy all the way to measurement. So the very far left, we have Policy Designer. This is our newest tool. The Policy Designer allows agencies anywhere along their program maturity. So it could be they just got legislation and they got to figure out how the heck we're going to deploy this, or it could be a implementation like Hanna's, where they're looking maybe to introduce thresholds or introduce more requirements for the HPDs, or to improve the pre-check process. We support the kind of the sandbox where they can kind of play with these different options, and then also run that analysis against real market data and get feedback from stakeholders. Once a policy has been firmed up, it then goes to the program builder. This is where we're able to quickly configure the policy, and this could be what materials are included, what are the rules for the HPDs or the EPDs, what does the reporting process look like, and most importantly, what is the workflow? Because I think that's where Built Cold is really focused on, is making sure that we're building these processes and steps so it's really effective and easy to deploy these programs without kind of putting more costs on the teams. Once the program has been configured and ready to go, we then go into Project Tracker, which is where the Buy Clean and Buy Fair program currently sits. They're actively collecting data, they're managing projects, and our system is two-sided. So on one side, we have the agency teams running the program, and then we have the project teams essentially building the buildings or the infrastructure. And that means identifying EPDs, tracking quantities, assigning to different project elements, and then making sure all that data is compliant in a really clean, easy way for both sides, the agency and the project teams, to collaborate and comply. And then lastly, we have a whole slew of dashboards. As Hanna shared, there will be one that's publicly available. And this is where we're very detailed in kind of what is being used on the project, what are the emission savings, what is the HPD participation rate, where are there opportunities to increase HPD inclusion into a project, and overall, just how do we make sure that the agencies that we support have all the tools to make sure that the intent of the legislation is being implemented as effectively as possible. But getting into the weeds, how did we start to incorporate HPDs? Because the Washington Buy Clean and Buy Fair program was the very first one that we supported that had this new component. And so we built a lot of new custom technology to support this, including a really amazing partnership with HPDC to incorporate their API. And so we're going to focus on the Project Tracker, which is where we currently sit today with Buy Clean and Buy Fair. And how our system works is that we ingest data from across the entire ecosystem of product information. So obviously EPDs are kind of our original data set that we worked with. We work very closely with EC3. Obviously Building Transparency is a subcontractor on this contract, but we also do Emerald Ecolabel for asphalt. And then we're seeing more and more agencies having their own set of EPDs that we have to ingest and normalize. But the blue box is HPDs. This is the net new input for us, and it's been really exciting because we've been able to work with HPDC to kind of figure out what are the ways to improve this workflow, how do we better manage this kind of data analysis and collection. But it all started with us ingesting HPDs into built cold, and then normalizing all of this data as it relates to a project management perspective. And there's been some challenges here. For instance, normally HPDs don't have, or rather HPDs and EPDs aren't always one-to-one, and they don't map very nicely currently. And so we had to build some custom technology to do our best to match a manufacturing plant that has an EPD with a corresponding HPD. Now, for the By Clean and By Fair law, it is not required. It is optional to have an HPD, and there is no, essentially parameter check on kind of what's included. But even making sure that we have voluntary HPDs available has been an interesting challenge to solve. In the project tracker, teams have the ability to request HPDs from their teams and manufacturers, but ideally we want to make this as automated and programmatic as possible. The other two things that we ingest in project tracker are baselines and other project data. So it could be whole bin LCAs, it could be projects from different tools, project data from different tools. And the whole objective is that we kind of give everything in a single interface so that agency and project teams can work off the same data to move as fast as possible and lower the cost. And within the project tracker, working with EPDs and HPDs, when a project is completed or it's hit a certain reporting threshold, we then can create submittals and additional data packages to feed other systems downstream. So this could be procurement systems, project management systems, specification systems, as well as certifications. So Lean V5 obviously has EPDs and HPDs included, which is really powerful. Envision, as well as customized submittal documents that certain agencies need across the country. Now, the reason we're here today is because it's about the pre-check, and the pre-check is going to be such a powerful feature, and we are excited for manufacturers in the state of Washington to really think about it. And Mija will go into much more detail. I'll quickly touch on how we're excited to implement it. So right now in our system, we are doing a somewhat complex matching process to find HPDs and EPDs from the same manufacturing plant. It's not great coverage, and as you can see in the screenshot of one of the experiences in Bill Cold, for this particular manufacturer, we only have one HPD that we're able to automatically map. And that's a big challenge because we're talking concrete, we're talking steel, we're talking wood in By Clean and By Fair. And there's manufacturers in those spaces that have HPDs that should be included. So all of that investment and hard work they've done to create those HPDs is really visible to the agency and project teams. And so with the pre-check, we're actually going to be requiring additional data that will dramatically simplify how we can match HPDs to a manufacturing plant that has an EPD. And when this happens, when you create your HPD and you author it and you go through the Washington By Clean and By Fair pre-check, we'll automatically be capturing the location of that plant. And then when our system ingests that data from HPDC, we'll be automatically mapping it to your manufacturer profile in Built Cold for the entire Washington By Clean and By Fair implementation. So we'll be taking something that's been kind of clunky, really hard to navigate, and through the amazing work of the HPDC team, we now have a pre-check that we can automatically ingest data and make it as simple as possible for all teams to essentially increase the adoption of HPDs, as well as simplify the compliance and tracking workflow. But that's just the teaser of the pre-check. I'm excited to pass it over to Mija to kind of go into the details and what you need to do to get all set up.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm all set. Thank you so much. I'll be happy to show how HPDC tools are supporting the By Clean and By Fair program and the Build Cold platform. I guess everyone can now see my screen. I am Mijali Marcano, Technical Manager at HPDC, and I am in charge of working with organizations to set up the criteria for their programs into HPD pre-checks and other screening tools within our tools. So what we are using to support these programs are the pre-check, the repository, and data partners elements of our material health tool suite. The core of the collaboration is the HPDC Pre-Check, which is the functionality that allows HPD data to be evaluated against the criteria of other programs outside the HPD Open Standard. This data is then published in the HPD public repository with the HPD and then shared through our APIs to the data partners, one of them being Build Cold. So the HPD Pre-Check is a tool within the HPD Builder, the software that is used by manufacturers to create HPDs. And this allows manufacturers to leverage the data that has been reported already or new data that can be specific for the pre-check to evaluate the possible alignment with programs. In the case of the Buy Clean and Buy Fair program, we started with collecting manufacturing location to support this matching specific, especially the matching process between EPDs and HPDs. In future improvements of the pre-check, we will likely suggest the user to also report the information about the EPD that could have been published for the product that the HPD is being reported for. So the way we configure the pre-check, and you will see it on the screen, it has information about the department itself, and then what is the material health program, the background of the Buy Clean and Buy Fair law and program, as well as the considerations that are being taken in projects, and which data field is being evaluated in the HPD. In this case, the user can see that the requirement for the manufacturing location is that it has indeed reported the manufacturing location, which is not a requirement in the HPD Open Standard. It's an additional data that the manufacturer can provide. The user will also find contact information and email address if they have any questions, and there is a link to go and learn more about the Washington Buy Clean and Buy Fair program. So what are the steps to pre-check? Any manufacturer that will create a new HPD is highly suggested to pre-check it for Buy Clean Buy Fair and the other programs as well. But if you have already published an HPD, you can come back to the builder and at the manufacturing location, run the pre-check and republish this data so that it becomes available for the bill code platform. So the steps will be to log into the HPD builder. You will open the product in HPD, go to section 1, and then at the manufacturing location, save the HPD, publish it again, and this is where the data is shared. I will do a live demo of this process directly in the HPD builder to show you. So for manufacturers, you are very familiar with the platform. This is the dashboard. You will select the product. Maybe if all your products are manufactured in the state of Washington, I recommend that you run this for all products. It will really take, you will see how quick it is, and it will be one time that you need to do this. When you renew your HPD, you won't even need to edit this data unless the manufacturing location has changed. So you will open the HPD, and then in the first section, if you scroll down, there is this field called location indicator at manufacturing location. This is referring to the location, the manufacturing location for the whole product, because there are other fields for location, but they refer to the content, and it's where you can indicate different process stages for location, let's say transportation, end of life. But in this case, we are referring to the manufacturing location specifically. I'm going to leave it empty to show you how the pre-check will provide an answer. Once the HPD has been completed, then you can go to the lead and program pre-check section and then go to program pre-checks. Here you will see the pre-checks that are available. Cradle to Cradle, Perkins and Will, Green Seal, and the new one, Washington Buy Clean and Buy Fair, is here first on the left. You can click Learn More and then read the information that I just presented about the program, and then subscribe or unsubscribe for pre-checking your HPD against the pre-check. So once subscribed, you can scroll up and then click here to see the feedback. And here the pre-check is letting the manufacturer know that this HPD is not aligned with the program because it's missing the manufacturing location. So if you go back to section 1 and select a location, you can enter this malware. You can just search a place. It's not searching, but let's do one testing. Not sure. They will be by default selected manufacturing location.
Your country's Albania, Misha.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
But
okay.
it's not letting me change. Let me see. Yeah, I had selected Albania first, and that's why. Okay, this is better. Thank you so much. So here it is. Here is Seattle. So once you have added the manufacturing location, then you can pre-check again. It might take like a few seconds to refresh. Now the pre-check is indicating that it is aligned with the program because the manufacturing location has been reported. And as I mentioned earlier, in the future, if we want to implement more data fields, this is where the feedback will be given. For example, the manufacturer needs to provide information about EPD or LCA published for the product. So once this has been done, then the manufacturer just needs to publish the HPD. And again, if the HPD was already published, you can just send a new record. It will replace the old one, but it will send the associated information with the pre-check through the API. And it will become available in the HPD repository. So as we get more data, there will be a filter for users of the repository to find HPDs by manufacturing location. And at the same time, it's being shared through the API with the API partners. So the build code platform will have this information. Any questions, you can always reach out to support. We'll be happy to help you pre-check your products against this pre-check and other pre-checks. And I will stop now and pass it back to Jeff if we have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, distinguished panelists. Thanks for the very informative presentation today. Yeah, and now we want to turn the microphone over to the audience. We want to see what kind of questions you can have. This can be a particularly valuable time during a webinar where we can address your specific questions. And Chantel Levine already posted a couple questions here in chat, and so I'm going to start with Chantel and pass the microphone over to Hanna. She already replied in the thread, but I do want to sort of surface these questions because they're great and would apply to a lot of people here. So her first question: any plan to integrate other certification declarations such as declare labels or C2C?
Not at this time. However, all state and higher ed projects that are covered by Clean and by Fair also have a statutory requirement to obtain LEED Silver or better rating. And so we are doing some work to sort of hopefully in the future simplify or streamline data collection on embodied carbon so it can be used both for our reporting purposes and for LEED certification. And Taylor, I don't know if you want to say anything more about that.
No, I think you covered it. That was
okay. Great.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Hanna. And how about another question here from Chantel? She wanted to know, what do you mean by supply chain specific EPDs in comparison to facility or product specific EPDs?
Yeah, so supply chain specific EPDs use exact supplier provided data to model embodied carbon and other impacts of upstream inputs in the product supply chain, whereas facility and product specific EPDs may use more industry average data for upstream inputs. Sometimes it's hard to tell on EPDs. Many steel EPDs have a supply chain specificity score. So you can kind of gauge that a little bit better. And then also industry average EPDs, where there may be more generic data, are more common for wood products.
Awesome. I think just to add on that too, with the supply chain specific versus a industry average, there are waiver processes. So if there is a reason why you can't get or use a product level or supply chain specific EPD, you can use a waiver. How the system works with Built Cold and Washington's implementation of it is that every EPD that we ingest in our primary data source for EPDs is EC3. We extract the plant location of that EPD, and then we then present all of the applicable materials and their manufacturing facilities in relation to the Washington State project. And so that is how we automatically map EPDs to a project location. With the HPDC Pre-Check, that same location data will be used to automatically present HPDs in relation to a project location. So that's one way we do that. And so if we aren't able to source a EPD within a certain radius of that project, then we have some waiver options where we have supplied industry average, as Hanna noted.
Thank you so much. Here's a question from Alexandra, and perhaps this goes to Misha. She says, apologies if I missed this. When is this new pre-check going to appear in the builder?
It's already available. You can access the pre-check right now.
Excellent. And from James Rogenbuck, asking, is wood veneer covered under BCBF, or is that exempt?
Yes, and I have linked in that Q&A a list to the statute that lists provides a longer and more specific list of which wood and engineered wood products are included.
And from Gabriella asking, Misha, what if a product is manufactured in multiple locations?
You can provide all manufacturing locations, as many as there are.
And Nazreen asks, what other criteria, aside from manufacturing or location, are required for an HPD to qualify for the Washington Buy Clean program?
Yeah, so our program only requires that an HPD be provided if it's available for the selected product and does not get more specific about excluding certain ingredients or inputs.
Align with the HPD open standard, Nasri.
Yeah, yes.
Another question, has Washington considered expanding Buy Clean, Buy Fair to cover smaller buildings, transportation infrastructure and materials, or to add GWP limits?
This has come up a bunch, actually, and will keep coming up, I'm sure. So, you know, one of the things that we thought was, gosh, maybe we set that initial square footage threshold too high. We want more data. We want to include more projects. And also there has been some interest in expanding to cover transportation infrastructure and materials. You know, of course, that would include collaboration with our State Department of Transportation. But they have done quite a bit of work in on the materials side so far. So we're a little bit more ready on that side. You know, embodied carbon is a hot topic in the policy landscape right now. So, you know, it's hard to predict. I don't have a crystal ball what may come our way or what may be introduced as a bill. But, you know, one of the things that I also get asked along with this question is, oh, let's say, you know, it did get expanded to cover transportation materials in the future. Would we have to build a whole separate database, or could we just expand what we have? And it is totally possible for us to just expand what we have working with Built Cold, and they work with other jurisdictions that do include transportation materials.
Thanks. How about this? What other climate or health related requirements for state building construction projects? What are other climate or health?
Yeah, so we have for executive or for a smaller subset of executive cabinet agencies are required to construct zero energy or zero energy capable buildings when they're doing new construction. As I mentioned earlier, all of our state projects must also meet LEED Silver or better. And then each project also has to complete a life cycle analysis, which is mostly focused on building energy systems, but also gives some information about comparing project alternatives. And it also includes sort of leverages a social cost of carbon to kind of help project owners and decision makers kind of balance trade-offs with higher performing buildings.
Cool. And one last question here for us. Tell us more about the other green procurement work your team is doing. That's directed at Hanna.
Yeah, so we started down this project working with Built Cold and HPDC, and I thought, oh gosh, there are a lot of once I started becoming more familiar with it, I was like, there's a lot of covered products in HPDC that aren't covered by Buy Clean and Buy Fair. So we might be able to use some of this information on the other side of the house. And the state of Washington, like many state governments, has a huge list of statewide contracts, and state agencies, local governments, tribes, public use districts in our state can ports can purchase from these statewide contracts and have to actually. And there are products on those statewide contracts like flooring, finishes, furniture, for example, which I know some of those products do have HPDs. And so, we are constantly developing green specifications for those statewide project or contracts. And now we're exploring options to sort of bake in, does the product have an HPD, and kind of including that information as we develop specifications for contract rebids. And, this is something we just sort of, the light bulb just went on about this. And so we're still working on it, but, just the more third-party verified, information that we can get on products on those statewide contracts, the more we want to provide that to our customers so that they can make informed purchasing decisions, and so that we can identify less toxic materials.
Awesome.
And Jeff, I also saw
Yep.
a question in the chat from Tom who said, we have
Yes.
seen agencies use alternative project delivery strategies to skirt procurement rules. Any possibilities in Washington? I'm like, I hope not, but please tell me what you're talking about so that a little bit more so that I can be on the lookout, because you just gave me something new to worry about.
Good looking out, Tom.
right.
I'll
be on the lookout, but we've done a lot of education, and this is also included in our budget instructions as a requirement. And it doesn't specify a project delivery method. It's all new building construction projects. So fingers crossed we won't see this. But yeah, now I'm going to lose some sleep.
All right. Well, with that, HPDC would like to, thank the state of Washington for the excellent leadership in this domain. Thank Built Cold for your innovative approach. And thanks for a great webinar, everybody. And we'll see you all next time.
Thank you all.